All right, great. Well, first question, why have you decided to run?
Thank you for that question. People always ask me why I'm running for state senate at a time when politics is so crazy. And for me,
Yeah,
it's deeply personal. I look around at my friends with kids, my friends who are older adults, my constituents I've served as a council member, people in the
yeah,
entertainment industry, who once had steady work even my own rent and my own bills each month. And it's really clear that everyone is really struggling in one way or another. And I ask
yeah,
myself, how could the state let them down? And then I ask myself, how can we fix it? I believe the answer is really simple. We need leaders who are courageous, proactive, and
yeah,
proven with vision and experience to drive real change. And I'm running to be that leader. I'm running to fix the way we build housing, provide healthcare, fund public education, rebuild in after the fires and prevent future fires in this district.
yeah,
Invest in economic development and jobs so we're no longer balancing the budget on the backs of our children and working families. And yes, I'm also running because it's critical that we fight for our democracy and take on Trump and ICE. And I'm running because I've already tackled a lot of these issues and have the
yeah,
skill set and expertise at a larger scale. As the former vice president of Planned Parenthood Los Angeles, I helped expand reproductive health care and freedom. As a council member, I created, successful homelessness and housing
yeah,
programs, raised the minimum wage,
yeah,
generated a $31 million budget surplus, and reinvested that back into our community. And through all that, I also protected the rights of women, renters, and the LGBTQ community. I really do believe we can turn California around by addressing age-old problems by putting our communities first. And despite all
yeah.
the angst we're living in, I'm really hopeful about our future, and I'm ready to bring that new kind of leadership to Sacramento.
Great. Well, first let's go to with housing first. What are your ideas on how housing should be, policies on on housing should be implemented?
Well, we have a number of things that we have to do to address housing. I'm a renter in this race, so we need to not only build more affordable housing, but housing at all levels, so that way people
Yeah,
can afford to live in the communities that they are. We need to cap our rents at 5%, a statewide bill that was killed by the apartment association and, landlords up in Sacramento. I'm the only renter
yeah,
in this race, and it's really important that we expand those types of protections, removing Costa-Hawkins and the Ellis Act, something I've long advocated for. And then ultimately, how we're building housing along mass transit. It's not only critical
yeah,
that we build housing along transit lines and corridors, but actually implement thoughtful zoning and housing plans that allow people to live and not have to use their cars or drive 20 to 30 miles to get to and from work in order to live in this district. And we have to make it
yeah,
cheaper to build housing, right? It still costs more money to build an affordable housing unit than it does to build a parking spot. That's a
yeah,
question of values and morals versus the courage to do it. And we really need a housing champion from the Southern California legislature and caucus to do so. And I know I will be that champion on day one. And that's why every housing organization has endorsed me in this race,
yeah.
from Abundant Housing, YIMBY, California, YIMBY LA. I mean, all of them have, solely endorsed me.
Great. What are your plans on education?
Well, we need to look at a lot of the ways in which education is funded, not only taxing the 1% and the
Yeah,
corporations, but looking at Prop 13 reform and split roll reform are critical. A lot of these dollars are not getting to our schools as a result of corporations continuing to get by in a tax code that was
yeah,
created before I was even born. The fact that Disney is still paying the same tax rate that they are way back then when they've continued to grow, and those dollars should be going back to the schools is a thing that we really need to address, which is why funding
yeah,
itself has been so limited. And also, we need to make sure that our schools and our teachers are supported in a growing, diverse world and how we're providing them not only workplace opportunity trainings and opportunities, but how are we advocating for workforce housing so they can live where they're actually teaching and not have to drive so much? And
yeah,
how are we providing them with the mental support, mental and behavioral support for not only the students, but also for the teachers and the administrative staff
Yeah.
To get by on a time when we're no longer paying executives hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but how are we putting that money back into the community? I mean, we look at the LAUSD strike, for example, right? Not
Yeah.
only did the board give the superintendent a huge pay raise, and then they're fighting over for lunch workers and other admin support to get benefits and a small boost in
Yeah.
healthcare and salary. That's a question of priorities, and we're not prioritizing working people.
All right. So on the economic and jobs policies, what are your stances there?
So we need to make it so businesses have a easier opportunity to open. I
Yeah.
come from a huge nightlife community, and so allowing businesses to interact with ABC and more efficiently is hypercritical
Yeah.
because oftentimes they're waiting on permits. But allowing businesses to also stay open till 4 a.m. That's a bill that we've been advocating for. I've been advocating for since I've been elected, but also no longer needing to go through all these hoops to do so.
Yeah.
Additionally, how are we streamlining permit approvals, business approvals, and everything else at the state that we can do to give local cities that ability to greenlight businesses faster? But then it also goes back to workers. And this is why I'm so proud to be endorsed by the Working Families Party and Labor by supporting workers to
Yeah.
earn a living wage and a minimum wage. That's why I authored our minimum wage policy in the city of West Hollywood and was able to champion that, where we now have the highest minimum wage in the state and at one point the country, because people need
That's
to make
great.
more money in order to live actually
Yeah.
in Los Angeles and California. And those dollars are so critical to get back to the people for them to
Yeah.
live their lives or be able to pay their bills or just have maybe a little bit of fun in the world if they're able to make a couple dollars more.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned the social issues, like women's rights and LGBTQ plus communities. What are your views on this more social and civil liberties issues? And of
Yeah.
course, ICE is
Yeah.
very important too.
So I'm the former president of the ACLU of Southern California, and so civil rights and expanding civil rights protections are
Yeah.
critical to me. As a gay man myself, the attacks on the LGBTQ community, specifically our trans community, are abhorrent. That's why I'm proud to be endorsed
Yeah.
by Equality California and a number of orgs, because I've proactively worked to not only expand protections for our LGBTQ community members, but also provided funding, critical funding to orgs like the Trans
Yeah.
Latina Coalition and others at a time even when budgets are tight, because that is the social safety net, the social safeguards that we need to provide to our communities that are further
Yeah.
at risk. I want ICE out of California. That's my day job. I work specifically as the chief of staff at an organization that fights for and advocates for our Latino and immigrant causes, and
Yeah.
providing not only funding to community organizations so they can get dollars to families and businesses that are afraid to go out because of ICE and
Yeah.
deportation efforts, but also how are we enforcing or creating new laws at the state to enforce the mask mandate, stuff that's being challenged currently in courts,
Yeah.
so ICE can't shield their faces like a modern day secret police that we see. And ultimately,
Yeah.
how are we essentially saying we do not want ICE operating in the state of California because all we see them is as a big goon squad, right? I do fully support ensuring that these individuals that signed up for ICE at a time where hatred and bigotry seem to be number one, not allowing them to serve in
Yeah.
our police forces as well. When it comes to reproductive health care, LGBTQ rights and women's rights are the same. These are all issues of civil liberties, and the expansion of reproductive health care statewide, something I was a part of not only through my 8 years of work at Planned Parenthood, but when we passed Prop 1 to enshrine
Yeah.
the right to abortion into the Constitution, to expanding telehealth options during COVID for people needing reproductive health care, or expanding reproductive health care options in our public schools so people can actually get access to care, are critical programs that need to be continued at a time when defunding Planned Parenthood seems to be top of mind for Republicans in the Trump
Yeah.
administration.
Yeah. Yeah. They're doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
constantly.
yeah. All right. What about the environment? What are your priorities on environmental protection and policies to tackle climate change?
Well, climate change is the biggest threat that we are seeing more and more with not only the increased fires, but the El Nino that's being
Yeah,
threatened this year to the work that's really critical. The federal administration is taking away a lot of our dollars, and so we as a state have to really look more holistically about how we're empowering local communities to
yeah,
where they need to be. How are we allowing solar to be cheaper, and how are we not taxing it at a high rate to go back to ratepayers?
yeah,
PG&E and SCE all give back to their private shareholders. And how are we breaking up these big monopolies so people who and corporations who are actually burning down communities are not earning
yeah,
that money
yeah,
back on increasing rate hikes? I serve on the board of the Clean Power Alliance, so investing in clean power alternatives outside of the main ones like Southern California Edison and others are critical for how we're going to continue to provide clean energy to communities like my city in West Hollywood
yeah,
and other cities across the district. Offshore wind, water resiliency, when we look at the Delta Tunnel project and all the issues that that's causing, to
yeah,
water conservation at a time when we're relying on a snowpack that's full in January and now it's completely empty. And so, how are we making sure our water infrastructure systems are updated, and how are we capturing gray water, wastewater, rainwater, and making sure this doesn't all go back into the ocean that we're seeing right now? And how are we giving LA County and other places the means to enhance their bond or their bond rates to do so? I
yeah,
also think, how are we getting people out of their cars? I'm a big proponent of, Metro and the expansion of the K line here, and the work that we critically have to do to pay for and make it easier to not only expand, train transit routes, right? I mean, $1 billion
yeah,
a mile or however much it costs to build, pieces of the metro or like the D line that just opened, that's astronomical. Cities and communities cannot afford that. And that is why the cost of all these issues needs to be seriously addressed. And how can the state act as a loan, as like a guarantor of these
yeah,
dollars, so that way we can push it forward? And, having to work with the federal administration when appropriate to get these much needed dollars into the counties that need to expand our metro systems so people get out of their cars, which is the number one
yeah,
cause of climate change, as you know.
yeah. All right. Well, because of the district you aim to represent, I think I gotta ask about AI and if you have specific policies for entertainment workers.
Yeah. So I just did a video with Stay in LA actually about this. We need to remove the cap that is currently in place for tax credits in the state of California. And we also need to expand that cap to apply to
Yeah,
virtual effects, commercials, and other below the line activities that keep people actually employed. But all of these issues for the entertainment industry go back to the issue of affordability, housing, healthcare. I mean, I'm the only one in this
yeah,
race that supports single payer healthcare, and that is a top of the line issue for a lot of workers because they don't have healthcare, right?
yeah,
How are we making it easier for film permitting and things to occur for smaller productions and larger productions? We have one film or TV show coming back to LA, but taking up all the tax credits. That's why that needs to be completely uncapped.
yeah,
AI needs to be highly regulated because we need to make sure that it's not taking people's jobs. But what I'm most concerned about is stopping these horrific corporate mergers with the studios, which are just going to enhance and increase the pocketbooks of the billionaires that control them versus
yeah,
giving that money back to workers and actors and everyone else.
yeah. Well, you know these AI data centers, they need a lot of water
Yes.
to to work. So that is also there's an environmental concern there also.
Yeah, no, a huge one. And data
Yeah,
centers, AI themselves are very, very top of mind for how we're actually protecting and um, protecting our climate from being further attacked
yeah.
by these issues that are occurring.
Great. I don't know if there's anything else that, well, I didn't ask about healthcare. I think I forgot, but you said you would be supporting the single payer
I
healthcare
support single
system.
payer healthcare. Yeah, I support
Yeah,
single payer healthcare, and I also critically believe that healthcare corporations as well as hospital CEOs' pays should be capped because no one should be making millions and millions of dollars when nurses themselves are being asked to work overtime, or healthcare
Yeah,
workers are being laid off. I mean, number one thing we should be caring about is patients, and we need to get back into the business of doing that and not corporate greed.
yeah. All right. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say. I
No.
mean,
You've
a
asked, you answered
local,
so much. It's great. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
I think it just in closing, I think there's a lot of choices in front of the voters, and I know it's really
yeah,
never easy to decide these things, but I'm asking people to look at not just what I say I'm going to do, but what I've already done to impact people's lives. And that's why teachers, nurses, and firefighters, elected leaders, community leaders all over the district are supporting me for state senate. And that is ultimately why I'm being attacked left and right by crypto billionaires and big
yeah,
pharma and big tobacco because I am a serious threat to the status quo because I'm going to go up there in Sacramento and work on behalf of working people and not corporate
yeah.
interests.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Let me know when you have the
Yeah, when I
thing. I'll
publish
share
the
it.
interview.
Yeah, when I share it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Wonderful.
Great.
Okay. Talk soon. Okay.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.